They're wounds that leave no visible scars, that ain't no broken bones. No dramatic moments, just quiet damage that builds over years until you no longer remember what peace feels like. The hardest part is that this pain often comes from the very people you were taught would always protect you. You grow up believing that because someone is family, their actions must be accepted. So you ignore the hurt, silence your feelings, and convince yourself that enduring it is simply part of love. But Stoic philosophy teaches something very different. It reminds us that our peace is our responsibility. We cannot control how other people think, speak, or behave, but we can decide what we continue to allow into our lives. The moment you realize this, you stop living as a prisoner of other people's choices and start becoming the guardian of your own mind. Today, we're going to explore 7 behaviors that quietly destroy confidence, emotional freedom, and self-respect. These patterns don't always look dangerous at first. They often disguise themselves as concern, tradition, or tough love. Yet over time, they can convince you that your feelings don't matter and your needs should always come last. If you've ever questioned your own worth because of the people closest to you, this message is for you. Listen carefully, because recognizing these patterns may be the first step toward reclaiming the life you deserve. Behavior 1. The most dangerous form of control rarely comes through anger. It comes through emotion. Some people never tell you what they truly want. Instead, they make you feel guilty until you give in. They know exactly which words trigger your compassion. They remind you of everything they've done for you, making every disagreement feel like an act of betrayal. Before long, you find yourself apologizing for decisions that were never wrong in the first place. This is emotional manipulation. It doesn't ask for your permission. It quietly trains you to believe that keeping everyone else happy is more important than protecting your own peace. You stop expressing your opinions because conflict feels exhausting. You stop saying no because disappointment becomes unbearable. Little by little, your own voice begins to disappear. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus believed that true freedom begins when your emotions are guided by reason rather than by the pressure of others. When someone constantly controls your choices through guilt, fear, or emotional pressure, they are not strengthening your relationship with them. They are weakening your relationship with yourself. Real love does not require emotional surrender. It allows honesty, respects boundaries, and never forces someone to sacrifice their well-being simply to avoid conflict. The day you stop allowing guilt to control your decisions is the day you begin taking your freedom back. Behavior 2. Disrespect rarely announces itself with shouting. More often, it appears in small moments that repeat over and over again. A sarcastic comment disguised as humor, an eye roll when you express your feelings, being interrupted before you can finish a sentence, having your achievements dismissed as luck while your mistakes are remembered for years. Each moment seems insignificant on its own, but together, they slowly reshape the way you see yourself. After hearing enough criticism, you begin questioning your own abilities. After enough dismissive comments, you hesitate before speaking. Eventually, you become so accustomed to being overlooked that respect starts feeling like something you have to earn instead of something every human being deserves. Seneca often reminded us that the people surrounding us influence the quality of our character. Constant disrespect slowly erodes confidence because it teaches us to accept treatment we would never wish upon someone we love. Healthy relationships leave you feeling valued, not diminished. They encourage growth instead of insecurity. They create space for honest conversation instead of constant criticism. Never mistake repeated disrespect for honesty. Never confuse humiliation with guidance. The people who genuinely care about you may challenge your ideas, but they will never destroy your dignity in the process. Remember this: every conversation you accept becomes part of the story you tell yourself about who you are. Choose relationships that remind you of your value, not ones that constantly make you question it. Behavior 3. One of the clearest signs of an unhealthy relationship is when someone refuses to respect your boundaries. First, it doesn't seem like a serious problem. They expect you to answer every phone call, explain every decision, or always make yourself available whenever they need you. If you say you're busy, they become offended. If you ask for privacy, they accuse you of hiding something. If you choose your own priorities, they make you feel as though you've abandoned them. Slowly, you begin believing that your time no longer belongs to you. You start saying yes when your heart wants to say no. You cancel your own plans to satisfy someone else's expectations. You sacrifice your peace because disappointing others feels more painful than disappointing yourself. But a boundary is not an act of rejection. It is an act of self-respect. Healthy relationships recognize that every person deserves emotional space, privacy, and the freedom to make their own choices. Love should never require unlimited access to your life. It should be built on trust, not entitlement. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that while we cannot control other people, we always have control over our own responses. That wisdom becomes powerful the moment you realize you don't need permission to protect your peace. Some people will become uncomfortable the first time you establish a boundary, not because your boundary is wrong, but because they were benefiting from the absence of one. Their disappointment is not proof that you've done something wrong. Sometimes it is simply proof that you have finally started respecting yourself. Every healthy boundary is a quiet reminder that your life has value, your time has value, and your emotional well-being deserves protection. The people who truly love you may need time to adjust, but they will eventually understand. Those who only value control will continue fighting every limit you create, and that tells you everything you need to know. Behavior 4. Few emotions influence people more than guilt. It can make intelligent people ignore their own needs for years. It can convince kind people that putting themselves first is somehow selfish. And when guilt is repeatedly used by someone close to you, it becomes one of the most powerful forms of emotional control. Perhaps you've heard words that instantly make your heart feel heavy. After everything I've sacrificed for you, I guess I don't matter anymore. You've changed. These words aren't always spoken to express genuine pain. Sometimes they are carefully chosen because they produce exactly the reaction the other person wants. You begin changing your decisions just to avoid feeling guilty. You stop asking what is healthy for you and start asking what will upset someone else the least. Little by little, your own happiness becomes dependent on everyone else's approval. But genuine love is never built upon emotional debt. No healthy relationship should require you to carry endless guilt simply for living your own life. The Stoics believed that our actions should be guided by wisdom, integrity, and reason, not by fear or emotional pressure. Every decision made solely to escape guilt moves you further away from your authentic self. There is an important difference between kindness and self-sacrifice. Kindness is freely given. That self-sacrifice becomes harmful when it destroys your own peace, while changing nothing for the better. You are responsible for your choices. You are not responsible for managing another person's emotions every moment of every day. The day you stop confusing guilt with love is the day your life begins to change. Because freedom doesn't begin when everyone approves of your decisions. Freedom begins when your decisions are no longer controlled by someone else's expectations. Behavior 5. Not every painful experience comes from cruel words or obvious conflict. Sometimes the deepest hurt comes from being consistently overlooked. There are people who never ask how you're doing unless they need something. They don't celebrate your victories. They don't notice your struggles, and they rarely make an effort to understand what you're carrying. You can spend years giving your time, your energy, and your support only to realize that when you need someone the most, no one is there. Over time, this kind of emotional neglect teaches you to hide your feelings. You stop sharing your thoughts because you expect them to be ignored. You convince yourself that asking for support is a burden, and eventually you begin carrying every problem alone. But emotional independence should come from strength, not from feeling forgotten. The Stoics encouraged resilience, but resilience was never meant to replace genuine human connection. Strength means standing firm during difficult times, not pretending your emotions don't exist. You cannot force someone to appreciate your value. You cannot convince someone to care if they have repeatedly chosen not to. What you can do is stop accepting relationships where your presence is only noticed when you're useful. You deserve relationships where your voice matters, your feelings are acknowledged, and your existence is appreciated rather than taken for granted. Choosing people who value you isn't selfish, it's wisdom. Behavior 6. Fear has no place inside a healthy relationship. Sometimes control doesn't appear through physical force. It appears through intimidation, a raised voice that immediately silences the room, constant criticism that makes you question every decision, unpredictable anger that forces everyone to walk on eggshells, hoping not to trigger another argument. When fear becomes normal, freedom quietly disappears. You stop speaking honestly because you're afraid of the reaction. You stop making choices for yourself because avoiding conflict becomes your highest priority. Before long, you're no longer living your own life. You're living according to someone else's emotions. Epictetus believed that the greatest freedom a person can possess is mastery over their own mind. No one should have the power to make you feel small. Simply so they can feel powerful. Real love creates safety. It creates trust. It allows honest conversations without fear of punishment or humiliation. Anyone who relies on intimidation to maintain control is not protecting the relationship. They're protecting their authority. Never confuse fear with respect. The two can never exist together. True respect is freely given. Fear is demanded. And the moment you recognize that difference, you begin reclaiming the confidence that intimidation tried to steal from you. Behavior 7. Perhaps the most painful experience of all is believing that love must be earned. Some people only show affection when you meet their expectations. They celebrate you when you agree with them, but withdraw their warmth the moment you choose a different path. Their kindness depends on your obedience. Their approval depends on your performance. Living under conditional love is exhausting. You begin changing who you are just to avoid rejection. You hide your opinions. You ignore your dreams. You become whatever version of yourself receives the least criticism. Eventually, you look in the mirror and realize you've spent years becoming someone else's idea of who you should be. Marcus Aurelius believed that every person has a unique nature and purpose. Living according to that nature requires courage, because not everyone will approve of your choices. But your purpose is not to collect approval. Your purpose is to live with integrity. Real love doesn't disappear when you make mistakes. It doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't require you to abandon your identity. It accepts you while encouraging your growth. Never settle for relationships where your worth depends on how useful, successful, or agreeable you are. Your value existed long before anyone gave you their approval, and it will continue to exist even if they never do. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must choose between protecting everyone else's comfort and protecting their own peace. That choice is rarely easy. People may misunderstand you. Some may call you selfish simply because you've stopped allowing them to control your life. Others may become distant because they can no longer benefit from your silence. Let them. Your responsibility has never been to keep everyone happy. Your responsibility is to live with wisdom, dignity, and self-respect. The Stoics understood that true freedom begins within. No one can take away your inner peace unless you hand it over willingly. Every healthy boundary you set is a declaration that your life matters. Every act of self-respect strengthens your character. Every decision to walk away from repeated toxicity creates space for healthier relationships to enter your life. Remember this. You are not responsible for fixing everyone. You are not required to remain where you are constantly wounded, and you never have to sacrifice your mental well-being simply to satisfy someone else's expectations. Protect your peace. Guard your mind. Choose relationships that inspire growth instead of fear, because the quality of your life will always reflect the quality of the people you allow closest to your heart. If today's message spoke to you, leave a comment below and share one lesson you'll carry forward from this moment. And if you're committed to building a calmer mind, stronger character, and a life guided by Stoic wisdom, subscribe to the channel and join us on this journey. Until next time, stay strong, protect your peace, and remember, the greatest victory is not changing other people.